Hello and welcome to episode 50 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is July 7th, and together with Robert and Goran, we're here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello.
Hi.
So today is episode 50. Wow. I don't think any one of us would have thought that we would make it to episode 50, but here we are.
Weekly,
yes, absolutely. So for today's episode, we thought about doing it a little different. We'll start with some interviews and then have an open discussion with Juergen Thomas, who was on the show with us for our Christmas special. So without further delay, let's start with our first interview.
So we have one very special guest, one of our special guests for our 50th episode of SAP on Azure YouTube, and very special guest, Will Bratton. My boss, by the way, so I have to be nice here.
Be careful.
I have to be careful. Now, I think it would be definitely very interesting for guys outside to see how Microsoft is having different roles and how they play in the SAP on Azure story. So let me first ask you, Will, okay, can you please introduce yourself? What is the role at Microsoft? How long you are related to SAP topic? So just to start with.
Sure. Yeah. So first and foremost, gentlemen, thank you so much for having me on today's show, and massive congratulations to you all on the 50 episodes. I think that's fabulous consistency, tremendous content, and wonderful guests you have. So compliments on that. Yes. So my name is Will Bratton, and I lead the Azure Global SAP Customer Engineering team. For those that have been around for a while, the team was formerly known as Azure CAT, the Customer Advisory Team. So I've been at Microsoft for 4 years. In fact, Holger and I started around the same time together. Yes. Right, Holger? Yeah, around the first half of 2017. Now, in terms of my SAP background, I've been involved with SAP since around 2005. Firstly, as an SAP basis consultant, and then transitioning to roles spanning consulting and including SAP technical architecture and enterprise architecture. But I think what's interesting for today's show is probably to talk to you a little bit about my SAP and Azure journey. And that started back actually in 2016. So I was working as a SAP technology platform architect with my former employer, who was an early adopter of SAP on Azure. So that employer, they had a end-of-life hardware event on the kit that was running their SAP ERP and utilities applications. And we faced a choice, do we procure new hardware and put it within the on-premises data centers, or do we move it to Azure? So following a detailed analysis, we decided to go for Azure. Back in 2016, a few enterprises were running mission critical tier 1 applications on the public cloud. But all the Gartner reports I read pointed in the direction of public cloud for SAP workloads. So with that said, I started to teach myself how to architect SAP in Azure, and I had confidence that we could meet the quality attributes for our SAP applications by moving them into Azure. So what I did with my former employer was I led a pilot migration project. So that meant migrating the SAP applications with my own hands, and creating all the migration runbooks with the detailed steps, which then enabled the operations team to run the productive migrations. I think zooming forward to the first half of 2017 then, two things happened. Firstly, my previous employer moved their production SAP applications to Azure. That was an ERP utilities application, serving around 1,500 users, and it was an 8 terabyte compressed database. Back in 2017, that was a big deal. And following, I got an opportunity to become a Microsoft employee, and here I am. I think continuing on the Microsoft story then, and how I got to know Olga and all of you guys. I was I think May 2017, I got the role as SAP Global Black Belt Technical Sales Lead for EMEA. I remember back then the rhythm of the business was insatiable as we incubated SAP on Azure, and as mentioned, that's where I got a chance to meet Holger, who was part of my team, you, Robert, and also you, Goran, as well. This was a tremendous learning experience and an opportunity to meet customers and partners across EMEA. And I worked on several go-to-markets with our team, that with partners such as SUSE, NetApp, Commvault. This was also a time where we really focused on scaling the business. And from a technical point of view, this meant, democratizing knowledge, creating content for SAP Cloud workshops, which we then used to train our customers and partners to ramp up their capability. This was a great time in my career. I learned a lot working from fantastic professionals. And I think after about 18 months in the Microsoft field, I moved into engineering. And when I made that transition, my focus moved from pre-sales to post-sales deployment for mass scale and complex SAP and Azure customer programs. So really now the job was that of a technical advisor to ensure our customers migrated their SAP estates to Azure successfully. Some of these customers had hundreds of discrete SAP applications that were migrated. In that role, I was spearheading new offerings in private preview for early adoption and feedback. I do recall there was one customer we had in private preview back then for our 12 terabyte VMs. That was like 6 months before we went GA with that product. In that role, I also supported extensively our SAP product marketing, whether that was crafting blog series for Sapphire and TechEd or building demos. I can recall a lot of early work was done on SAP with Azure NetApp files and of course supporting our SAP and Azure World Tours where I presented our engineering roadmaps. So that's a bit about where I am and where I came from, Gunnar.
Yeah. So basically, it's not just. We are core part of the engineering stuff,
Yep.
engineering branch, but we do work also with helping and advising the big customer. We can't do with everyone, right?
Yep.
But still, we do also try to do a bit more than just advising, right? To be proactive on the IP stuff, on the introducing to the newest Microsoft offers, prototyping with them, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Excellent. So, generally speaking, so why, in your opinion, to be neutral as much as possible, so why would some customer, in your opinion, choose the Azure or maybe even the partner? Okay, we are not dealing we are also dealing indirectly with the partner through the customer, right? In some way, but why would the customer choose and partner choose the Azure, for example, for the SAP business critical system? It has to be run 24/7. It has to be scalable.
Yeah. So why would a customer or partner select SAP on Azure? I think firstly, we have the components our customers and partners need to build great SAP architectures on public cloud. And if I was to unpack that a little bit, I would say that's broadly over 4 different pillars. Okay, the first pillar would be in the security area, for identity and access management, with Azure Active Directory, facilitating secure single sign-on to SAP applications. Second under security would be application and data security, encryption of data and protection of keys and secrets within Azure Key Vault. Another area in security could be, for example, threat protection via Azure Sentinel for SAP and your security controls. I think on security, actually, there was a great episode 38 on this show with Evren Burak for Zero Trust for SAP. So check that out if you're interested in security. The second pillar, which is super important, is performance and scalability. Today on Azure, we can scale from 2 vCPUs around 2,200 SAPs all the way to 416 vCPUs just shy of 500,000 SAPs on VMs, and we won't stop there. Okay, on the storage side of the house, for SAP workloads, highly performant storage, which offers sub-millisecond write latencies, and of course that's very important for HANA. Third pillar would be availability and recoverability, a subject very close to your heart, Goran. Availability SLAs and infrastructure, to 4 nines when we use Azure availability zones for SAP deployments. Extensive reference architectures published for HA or high availability SAP deployments spanning both Windows and Linux. And of course, out of the box data protection for SAP with Azure backup. I think the fourth pillar that we shouldn't lose sight of is we call efficiency in operations. And that means first party SAP and Azure automation for programmatic and quality and accelerated SAP and Azure deployments. And secondly, I would say there, I think you had Ross Sponholz on the show a few weeks back as well. Azure Monitor for SAP solutions to capture telemetry information from both the Azure platform, SAP NetWeaver and the database in a single pane of glass for rapid problem resolution. Now, I think beyond the technology, however, why would a customer or partner choose SAP and Azure? Beyond the technology, people matter, right? People matter, and that means we have laser-focused teams working in the SAP and Azure space, spanning both field and engineering, and we care deeply about the success of our customers and building the best products for SAP on hyperscale cloud. So,
by the way, I just came to my mind. I need to quote you. If customer has any issues, of course, we will jump to try to solve it. And you just mentioned, when we start to pull all the wheels inside of the Microsoft and different teams as the one, it's just amazing. You said it's amazing experience to see such a big force and knowledge which comes together in order to help the customer and fix any potential issue or improve the platform, right? So you see the enterprise. What does it mean, the word? Basically enterprise as a company.
Yeah, that's for me actually also one of the biggest points. And Will, I still remember, as you said, as we started this SAP journey, I think we were, I don't know, a few tens people or something like that. I don't know. And if you look today, really, literally, we have hundreds of colleagues across the world in different areas, in different regions, with different expertises that really know how to work with SAP, how to work with SAP on Azure. And that is something that I find truly amazing. I mean, whenever you have a question and just internally and you ask on one of our groups there, ask a question, then there's almost always someone who has some expertise in this specific area. And in the meantime, there's so many colleagues that I've never met. I mean, especially now, obviously with Corona, I've never met. I only know them via email, via Teams chat, and it's truly amazing from my point of view. This breadth and depth that we currently have at Microsoft. So I couldn't agree more. It is really also about the people that Microsoft has in the area of SAP on Azure that help our customers, that help our partners. So I couldn't agree more.
100%. And and thinking, kind of finalizing that point about the why question, there's a proven track record there, and there's credentials of customer success with SAP and Azure. If you look at some of the customer projects my team is engaged with, and these are all public case studies, so I can speak a little bit about them there.
Yeah.
What Walgreens Boots Alliance, 48 terabyte S4 HANA retail, a Goliath of an implementation. Achmea, that's a Fortune 500 insurance company out in the Netherlands. We had them on our SAP migration webinar on the 7th of June. So if the audience check that out, you'll hear directly from the customer. Moving over 100 discrete SAP applications into Azure. Coca-Cola North America, 48 terabyte EW on HANA with Azure NetApp files and an 8+2 construct. There's a very nice technical case study there for the audience that like a little bit more of the technical details. But yeah, so this is some of the customers that we work with and to deliver success together across both our field and engineering teams. And people really matter. People matter.
Yeah. I mean, we will put, Holger, also those links to the use cases public. So, but these are really big companies. Typically, we can't work with every company. Well, we do work with the mammoths there, right? Which is a huge, big customer, big databases, very sensitive business, sensitive for performance, for the downtime, right?
Yeah.
And definitely that gives shows really the strength of the Microsoft and Azure behind it, the story.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Would you, Helger, you want to?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
So, I mean, you're already involved for a long time, and you always, I know you have a very good ability to zoom out and have a big picture, right? And then you surely see the trends, how the things are moving, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in your opinion, so what could be what would be, let's say, the next big thing or things that are coming to SAP on Azure stories? Or where you see that's kind of huge potential also there, that customer might would benefit there.
But keep in mind, we are public here, so don't spill all the beans.
Yeah, we need to.
Yeah. I'll keep myself contained. Although I do get excited sometimes, right? I would say there's some really cool stuff coming with regards to the integration of Microsoft Teams and SAP. You may have covered that in previous shows, so I won't elaborate on those details. I think pivoting back to what I said at the start of today's call, I'm an SAP basis guy at heart, right? A technical guy at heart. So what I'd like to do is maybe talk about some of the capabilities that are coming where my team are heavily involved, and I'll talk about as much of them as I can. I think that would be pertinent for the discussion today. So there will be increased capability for our first-party SAP on Azure automation solution. We'll put the link up to that one, which is on the GitHub repository. But that will really help customers accelerate SAP and Azure deployments in a programmatic way, avoiding drift from reference architecture. So that's a really great one, and I'm very excited about that. The team have been doing tremendous work over there. The second one, and Ross Sponholtz from my team was on, I think, 4 or 5 weeks back on the show. I forget the number of the episode. Forgive me on that. You can quote me later. But for Azure Monitor for SAP solutions, there will be support for databases beyond HANA and SQL Server. And that's based on direct feedback from our customers on that one. So very cool capabilities coming there. I think you had Kartik from the Azure Backup team on the show as well, also a few weeks back. There will be new capabilities coming in the data protection space with Azure Backup, which will facilitate a shorter RTO for restore scenarios, and also accelerate like SAP system copies and refreshes, which, as we all know, are essential for SAP operations. And I think the last one I'll maybe mention is we will introduce some new SAP and Azure reference architectures, and they will simplify operations by reducing VM sprawl with fewer moving parts. So that probably gives you a little nugget of a few of the things to come without elaborating too much on the details. Hopefully that's a sufficient answer for you, Gunnar.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent. I mean, story generally is big, but at least we are definitely focused in your area, in our area of work. And I see, automation is with all, we've seen customers are doing wrongly set up. They're doing also, so then the issues are coming, right?
Yeah.
Manually deployment is extremely slow down process. To deploy just the infrastructure manually, meaning through the portal, for example, takes 2 weeks approximately time per SAP SID, one system, just one, and they might have 100, 200, 500 SAP SID 600, right?
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that, because we are working with one customer today. I'm not going to say the name of that customer, but they're in the CPG space, and they're in the process of moving almost 400 discrete SAP applications to Azure. I mean, that's like one of the largest SAP estates in the world. And, you know, when you drive a program like that, you cannot do that without automation, right? I mean, you have to, especially when you've got an intense velocity on a project as well, you know, to get that done. So, yeah, that's key for us, and, you know, really happy that in partnership with our SAP product group, we're bringing this SAP on Azure automation capability to the market as a first-party solution. So cool stuff coming here.
Yeah. Maybe also, so not to forget also the quality checks.
Oh yeah.
Already there and definitely will be improved. The reason is not everybody use automation, and there are always some misconfiguration there, which typically leads to the issue. Just people don't follow the best practices. We are also changing the documentation and the best practices, and customers are not always up to date with the latest stuff. So again, and customers also need to change the configuration, increase the volume size because the database, and they will do some mistakes there. So those kind of config checks basically are very, very useful to scan the system, and then basically also to identify any issues according to the latest best practices, right?
Couldn't agree more, and thanks for the reminder on that one. I think Philip Leitenbauer was on the show a few weeks back as well, and indeed he's been doing some great work on the SAP quality check, as we call it, and that is indeed to look through the configuration and, you know, call out any drift from reference architecture, which allows you to then go and remediate any open loop to ensure that you get a quality build for your SAP deployment on Azure. So indeed, that's a big one for us, and Philip's working with full engagement on getting the next release of that one out, and I'm pretty excited about it. I did actually see it yesterday, and it just looks incredible. So some cool stuff to come there as well. Thanks for the reminder, Gunnar.
Yeah.
Cool. Perfect. No, I think Will, thank you so much for taking your time. And actually, Robert just pinged me. His internet broke down, so that's why he had to drop off early. But
okay.
I think that's fine. We will have more interviews, not with you, but we have some other colleagues lined up. So I think with this we can hand over to them. But again, thank you very much for joining, and maybe we can have another episode where you join us again and talk a little about some of the projects, maybe the results of this 500 SAP landscapes migration project or something like that.
Yeah, I would be delighted to, and as long as the listeners don't get irritated, listen to my bad accent.
On the contrary,
yeah, we love it.
but yeah, like I was saying to you guys at the start of the show, you might have to run some subtitles next time I'm coming along, so the audience will understand me. But gentlemen, thanks a lot for having me on today's show, and keep working the magic for SAP on Azure. It's inspiring, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Will. Appreciate it. Bye. So now we have another guest, another manager, Carsten Hecht. Welcome, Carsten. He comes from the partner management organization, exactly like Robert. So, Robert, I give to you. He's your manager, and you can let's start the discussion and about the partner part.
Okay, yes, I'm starting with my manager and dirty questions. Yeah. Okay. So of course, thank you, Goran, and of course, for us, it's important that we have a overview for all aspects. And I think our partners, Microsoft, is really partner-driven company, and for us, it's very important that we, with SAP on Azure topic, also are very active in that part. And of course, I want to first thank you, Carsten, to being here together with us and celebrate together with us our small anniversary, 50 sessions so far. And so let's talk directly about you. So how long have you been in Microsoft, and when you start to work with SAP topics, tell us a little bit more about you.
So first of all, thank you very much for having me in this wonderful group. and webcast series. Well, personally, I've been with Microsoft for more than 15 years now.
Oh.
And I've had various positions, spending the last years in various roles in the partner organization, working with partners. As I said, Microsoft is partner-driven. It's at the core of the DNA, so to say. And before that, I actually started as a product manager or team lead for product managers. And at the time, I was responsible for various server products. And back then, SAP obviously was a key workload for SQL Server, Windows Server. I think I spent the last 15 plus years, not just with Microsoft, but also to some extent with SAP. Nowadays, I have the pleasure of leading a group of solution architects that are dedicated to partners. So basically, our job is to make partners successful, right? And these solution architects are not just technical experts, but understand how to become successful in a particular domain, such as SAP and Microsoft. So our job, our role, my role is not just to provide technical enablement to partners, so they become kind of independent of us, so can act on their own, but also to guide them in building successful practices for SAP and Azure, but also ramping up their pre-sales, for instance, building solutions, moving to offering managed services. So it's a pretty broad scope. And I mean, naturally, we think beyond SAP on Azure and Azure as infrastructure. It becomes more and more relevant, particularly from a customer perspective, to think in end-to-end processes and getting a broader picture, not just for the SAP domain or world, but beyond that. So
yeah,
that's
great.
me. That's our team in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting because our team, your team, is actually not just focusing, as you mentioned, SAP on Azure. We are really going from end to end. We have really experts in DevOps, IoT, and all stuff. And I think what we learned all together in the last few years that actually there's no really defined boundaries. So there's really SAP on SAP topics go left and right on DevOps direction and IoT direction. So. And we are somehow mixing the topics cross different teams, so to say. So, and what do you think? I mean, you know, in most traditional way, when you're talking about partners, and in most cases, you know, we are somehow going direction. Okay, we are selling our software. Now we are selling our services, our Azure platform. Yeah? But now we have also somehow some extra together with that is SAP part. So how that is different from standard Microsoft partner business and now SAP on Azure business? Is there much difference between handling classical partner organization and now with this complex SAP on Azure topics?
Well, what I've learned is our partners have different business models. So they are partners who provide project-based services, migrating SAP on a new platform, for instance. They're a managed service provider who provides SAP plus complementary services from their own data center. And there are ISVs that basically provide the entire SAP partner landscape with solutions which make their life easier or the life of other partners easier. So I think we have to differentiate how recognize the respective partner business model. Plus, I think it's our job to help the entire partner ecosystem to flourish. So combining partners with partners so they can provide more value to customers. Probably you've touched SNP in this series before, which basically simplifies the transition from SAP into the cloud and makes it more efficient from a cost perspective, for instance. That's just one example. So recognizing the partner business models plus partnering with partners probably is super critical. If we think or look at that from a partner, from a customer perspective, it goes beyond individual technologies. So as I already mentioned earlier, it's from a customer perspective. It's not just migrating to the cheapest VM or so. That does play a role, certainly. But from my perspective, what I've learned is that customers on the IT side also think in terms of manageability, operations, governance, but also more importantly, they think about how to integrate SAP into their entire, not just infrastructure, but into their processes, so to say. I remember a conversation I had with a partner and a customer, where the customer was demanding from the partner to certainly migrate SAP in a most cost-efficient manner, make it manageable, and ensure a certain type of governance. But also ensure that it integrates into certain processes in the bottling industry, for instance. So, and back to a question, I think we have to consider these different dimensions when we work with partners. It's not just providing enablement for a certain piece of technology, but think of the customer perspective, but also work with partners, how they combine their skills, their IP with other partners.
So
some dimensions that come to my mind.
Yeah, great. I mean, it's very interesting. But I mean, so when we're going that direction, so how you will position Azure? So what you will tell to partner? Hey, this is the reason why you should go to Azure. How you will? What is from your experience? Working with all us, with complete team, different cloud solution architects. What you have learned in that side? So what you will tell the SAP partner why they should go take the Azure and together with their customer actually migrate the SAP loads to Azure?
Yeah, usually, I mean, many of these conversations used to start with, looking at the best architecture from a technical, but also from a cost perspective when it comes to running SAP on Azure. But I think that's a little bit short-sighted, right? Obviously, there's so many general requirements that customers demand that go beyond SAP as a workload that are super critical from an Azure perspective. Just think of the global footprint regarding our data centers, tons of certifications regarding compliance, security, you name it. That's certainly important. But I think challenging this perspective beyond, just a stack for SAP on certain platform has become much more important. As I said earlier, looking at the entire capabilities of the Azure platform is super critical. Just think of data. Just think of Active Directory integration to make processes more seamless, also from a security identity perspective. But also think beyond Azure. I mean, Office 365, Teams integration is super critical. I'm also thinking of Power Apps, so allowing citizen developers in organizations to quickly develop lightweight processes that leverage data from SAP and other systems running on Azure, and maybe very other or different sources. So Azure is not just, or my recommendation is don't just look at the VMs. Consider some critical requirements customers have: security, compliance, data center footprint. Think of cross-workload technologies such as Active Directory, for instance, a common data platform that allows you to leverage data from multiple sources, but also think of human-driven processes that basically are run in teams, and maybe even Power Platforms. So it's not just about Azure, it's about all three clouds Microsoft does provide.
Yeah, great. I mean, that's somehow going in my last question, actually. What do you think it's about big next step the partners should do? I mean, I'm always going in the direction of partner because we are discussing a partner. Of course, this is reflecting that heavily on our customer side. So is there something really special what you think in, for example, in this year or our fiscal year, we just started for a new fiscal year for Microsoft side. what we can do or should do to actually work much better with partner, or in vice versa way, what partners should do to somehow work closer to with us and somehow to together go on the next phase or next step?
Well, I think every partner is in a particular maturity stage, right? And all of us have to recognize and acknowledge that. In general, I think it's about finding the next development step, so to say, with our partners, and to see what the individual partner can achieve next. In general, I would say, think of how you can evolve from a project-based business, if you're in a project-based business today, and rather evolve your approach into an iterative, continuous improvement of what you do, and not just doing one thing and just try to complete it, but apply an iterative approach. I wouldn't say that this is a brand new big step forward, but I think there's so much room for improvement, or so many opportunities along the dimension I just mentioned. From a technology perspective, from a partner perspective, there's so many opportunities, and I think it's super specific per partner. And I mean, Microsoft is investing into so many people basically to help our partners to do this in a way that fits their business model, their priorities best. So it's different, or it's individual per partner. It's very specific.
Okay, great.
I think
great.
Just one additional thought, or what resonated very well to me right now is, if we look at some of the initiatives that we are driving with SAP right now, and you mentioned the Teams integration, but also when we look at the different things around the Office or Power Platform and stuff like that, and I assume a lot of classic SAP partners, they are obviously not experts in Teams or Office or Power Platform or Azure Active Directory. And what you said then, to really bring these different partners together and help them, educate them, and to show them. Because what I always find really fascinating, I mean, the Teams integration looks really amazing, but actually if you look at it, it's not so complicated if you know how Teams works. And that is obviously where we have partners that know how Teams work. And then you introduce them to a partner that knows how SAP works. Then actually it's fairly easy to build new scenarios. And that's what I just wanted to emphasize. I like your statement that it's really working with different partners, bringing them to collaborate together, helping them to get certain things done. I think that's really nice.
Yeah, that's our DNA. So it's not our attitude to throw documentation at partners and execute a kind of transactional kind of way with our partners. It's really about making them successful. And as I said in the beginning, it does include technical enablement, but just one piece of that. It's also about co-selling with our partners. It's about bringing partners together with other partners so they can be more successful. And that's something we invest into heavily. And I think that's one of the key differentiators Microsoft has.
Nice.
That goes far beyond technology, right?
Very, very nice closing words. Okay, so thank you, Carsten, for your time. And do you have any message to us? Do you see that we have some opportunity to improve? So do you have something for us? How to continue with this podcast in the future?
Well, maybe we can invite even more partners just to learn from partners. That would be one of the recommendations. But hey, keep the nice work going.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Carsten.
Thank you. Okay, with this, I think we can go to our last segment of our episode 50 today. For this, we again have a very special guest, so you might remember him from our Christmas special episode. We have Juergen Thomas again with us. And I think if you are working in the area of SAP and Azure, then you know Juergen. But just in case you have not yet really heard about him, maybe Juergen, you can quickly introduce yourself.
Pleasure to. So, name is Juergen Thomas, as Holger mentioned. I'm a partner development manager in Azure Core, working for Microsoft with SAP for more than 25 years, leading a larger team that's distributed across the world. We are creating the reference architectures for SAP workload on Azure, working with the different SAP development teams and hosting SAP workload on Azure. And I'm also working with our development teams in order to get the right hardware, to get the right functionalities and features in place that customers can use with SAP workload.
Cool. So Juergen, when you was just saying 25 years, I was just reminded when we talk in our slides, when we present to customers about the trusted relationship that we have with SAP and so on, we actually always say, well, this is a 25 years journey. So it looks like you were really part of the journey from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I think I missed the first 2 years. There's this famous picture of Hasso Plattner and Bill Gates sitting together, a black and white picture. And SAP actually has it in their cafeteria for executive in their executive briefing center. And I missed the years 94 and 95 where SAP started to implement SAP R3 at that point in time onto Windows, the Windows operating system, the Windows NT operating system. And I did miss as well the first starts of implementing SAP R3 on SQL servers. They started with 4.2, then went to 6.0. But I came on board when we had around 10 to 12 SAP customers running R3 on SQL Server 6.0. Yeah, since that, yeah, it was a tremendous journey. No doubt about that. With very different, also amazing to see how the focus changed as well in the partnership. And funny that you just mentioned that angle. Yesterday, I was reviewing slides about hey, what's our history with SAP and the partnership history with SAP, and I think it's a unique partnership between SAP and Microsoft. Not only that it's two big companies, but I think the transformation of the partnership in terms of platforms, or the technical focus that changed dramatically. And I think we can state that SAP and Microsoft together, from a partnership point of view, have probably the largest joint customer base in any partnership between SAP and another company. And so this is super interesting, and it's very unique, in all aspects. If you think about other partners or partnerships that SAP has, either they are very restricted to certain topics and never expanded into the cloud business or the public cloud business, the hyperscale business. They are stuck then to certain components like databases or more private cloud things. The only partner that I can see with SAP over the last 25 years or even longer that really was able to take the challenge of new technologies and new strategic directions is really Microsoft, where we were on the operating system and database basis. We then took up scalability on ever-growing hardware. We took up private cloud, and we went as a company as a whole, Microsoft, went into the hyperscale cloud business, software as a service, platform as a service. There's no other partner with SAP that together with SAP. The partners that you're seeing in the hyperscale cloud business today, they all came on board way later. when you look at our competition here. So it's really a unique thing. And the great thing about it is the experiences we gained in the mission critical space with the databases, with the operating systems, they are not lost. It's not that we threw that knowledge and expertise overboard. Hyperscale cloud's a complete new business. Nothing that we experienced before can be applied. No, in opposite. I mean, this is the strength that we have here. We do have the experiences that we gained with SAP software and with SAP workload for 25 years, and we are able to apply it to what we are doing today and set it in context of hyperscale cloud today. That's a fascinating thing. It's like really great.
Yeah, top down from clients to server to the cloud. I mean, everything is there. To Linux, if you want, to Windows. I mean, that's it's not your father's Microsoft. Somebody said.
No. I mean, it's a complete. Think about it. It's a complete different company. Microsoft as well compared to 25 years ago, and a complete different company. And nevertheless, I mean, super excited. I mean, it's very exciting, and more exciting than ever, I'd argue. No, I mean, look at the topics that we're doing today. Look at the impact that hyperscale cloud or cloud has to companies. The impact's tremendous. I mean, compared to before, we debated about do you take Oracle or SQL Server as a database? So sure, there was some impact to the companies and also to the people that need to administrate, operate in these databases. But today, you're working in a complete different dimension.
Mm-hmm.
No,
that's a good point. Yeah,
it's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see how the different things have evolved. Like first, we were only looking at servers. Then SQL Server, obviously, a very important point. And I also like the different collaboration areas where we were working with SAP. Obviously, in the beginning, actually, Goran, Robert, and we were all on the other side, obviously, working at SAP with you. But then it's really interesting to see these different levels of interactions. I mean, for me personally, I still very much remember then Mendocino or Duet, where for the first time then not only really talked about servers interacting with each other, but where we really went into the integration space. And I think actually, if we compare this with today, I mean, yes, virtual machines is super critical, obviously, but we're really going now more and more also in the area of integration, Azure Active Directory.
Oh yeah, no. I mean that is definitely the future direction that we need to look into, or not look into. The customers are demanding it already, so we definitely need to work in that space. I think from the interesting part in the future is as well is how do we enable customers to get access to SAP as in the back end. I mean, when we look at S4HANA, we look at Fiori with the tiles concepts and everything, but again, it's not everybody's space to use these kind of front ends. So the question is, how can we, with low development cost or no code development as well, make SAP the business processes, make available, extend them into every customer, into every employee of a company. That's a huge that's a direction that definitely is demanded and is required, and that we look into it. I mean, SAP is obviously having some efforts going on in that space. We obviously, with our Power Platform, Power App, do have a similar direction. I wouldn't argue that they sits the one or the other. I think, as usual, in all the years that we have gained experience with SAP, that we worked with SAP, both companies realized there's a side to side, that there's a together in this. And so, as SAP ramps up efforts in the no-code space on our side, we certainly need to are looking into these things as well. We have the first Power App connector out as well, and so that's definitely a space that asks for expansions of our efforts and more efforts and more initiatives in that space, no doubt about it. I mean, it's from a customer point of view, that's the logical next step as they are hosted on Azure. Now it's about to get the integrations not only on the data layer, but also on the application, on the business process layer, to open, to use the full power, to use all tools and functionalities that a cloud comes with, and then really integrate and embed SAP business processes as well. As we look at it in two layers. One is the data, the other one, and we very often kind of forget that layer, and that is certainly the business process extensions, the business process integration into all these tools that customers are using.
Yeah.
So that's certainly a space.
But interesting is also a trend. I mean, SAP is a client tier, client server 2-tier architecture, and that was always the same. Now came in the below infrastructure as a service, Okay, then comes the integration around this business layer, Power App, logical app, and then. But also what is kind of happening more and more, like the as a service, like backup as a service, cloud service, monitoring as a service. With, of course, the SAP integration always plays a big role, because somehow this as a service means no management there. Of course, you need the features, right?
Yeah.
But kind of that also simplifies the overall features which customer needs to manage and operate the SAP as well, right? So, how do you see this also? I mean, that's an interesting trend.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is one of those things. We might have at the beginning kind of underestimated the desire of the customers related to the operational integration, and like backup, like monitoring, and so on. So this is something that we are now that we are looking at, or we are investing for the last 2-3 years, and it is clear from customer feedback. One of the things, even if the customer in quotes only moves with infrastructure as a service in SAP or infrastructure as a service into Azure, they are expecting less efforts than they have on premise, where they have to set up backup backends. They eventually need to spend licenses for third party here, and then so they operate and monitor a whole backup infrastructure. As you move into such a hyperscale cloud, there is a certain expectation that tasks like these are way easier, or are given by a SaaS service, and that's exactly why we invested pretty heavily in HANA as well. And when you look, for example, into our backup solution that we have, we are distinctively different from our competitors here. Our competitors do have some storage connectors that allow you to get through the HANA backend interface some data into their storage, but that's only one part of the story. There is no administration around it. There's no retention around it. There's no access control around it. Whereas we, with our backup as a service, supporting HANA backend, working on several variations and several additional functionalities, we have a complete backup SaaS service. service that's compliant. You can set up retention periods for the backups to make sure that they are not getting deleted. You have access control to the backup as a service, so you can make sure that not everybody can restore a backup or can take the files out. So these kinds of things are getting more and more attention by customers, are playing more and more a role by customers when they evaluate a platform. And so the same goes for the monitoring. So we decided to put some resources, to invest some resources, and then with the goal to really say, look, Azure, we ourselves from an infrastructure point of view do have a lot of monitoring data already. How can we correlate that with what happens in the HANA database, or currently the SQL Server database as well, and meanwhile the NetWeaver stack as well. So these are things where customers do have expectations towards their cloud, their hyperscale cloud vendor these days, because it's not only that it should become easier. There is an expectation that certain operational and monitoring tasks, even deployment tasks, are going to be easier, are going to be can be done with less efforts, with less resources on the customer side, and that's exactly another area where we do a lot of investment, where we ramped up quite a bit of people, and where I do expect that in the next 12 to 18 months we do see quite a few results of that being available, being visible to the customers as well.
Great. I mean, because this is.
Go, continue.
I mean, I'm just thinking, when this is a SaaS service, software as a service, you don't have to install it, operate it, patch it. You just use it, and that's less of management, meaning cost saving, less knowledge that you need. I mean, once you just user interface, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Robert.
So I mean, I just want to turn a little bit story around, because we always talking about what we need to do, what we are achieving, and I think we are doing a lot. But from your long history of experience, you probably have somewhere a wish list what you would like that SAP do in the future. So do you have something like where you would like to see SAP, what they should change or improve?
Oh, I mean, the list is probably quite. I wouldn't say quite long, but there's certainly a list there, which I wouldn't like to share officially here. There's certainly always. Let's be fair, it's SAP has a long list as well, and so lists are certainly driven then out of the points of view of the different companies or individuals like me as well. And one has to say it's not that we are sitting there, both parties sit there with the long lists and cannot agree. I mean, Embrace is a classical one. Yeah. The announcements that we made in January, that we were sitting together with the lists, and that some of the things that we had on the lists we are actually currently in motion and the development, and will go into deployment, available for customers soon. Is the list always longer than what we can execute on? Sure, it is, no doubt about. But beyond that, think about digital supply chain, where we have work going on, and so it is we are working down on the list, and there will be always items on the list, and it's a normal thing, but it's positive to see that items disappear off the list, that items show up at customer space. So it's a good progress we make, and so pretty happy about at the moment, and realistically, we seem to be able to make an impact for customers with what we are working down together. So
Right. I would also, I mean, from my point of view, it's really like what you said. There's this whole extended partnership that clearly shows that SAP has a long list for us. We have a long list for them. And the good thing is, because we have been working so long together, we have established Teams connections across. I mean, Satya is talking to Christian as we saw, but then it's really all the way down that individual developers are talking to each other, management levels are talking to each other. And I think that's, I mean, it would be sad if there wouldn't be such a list.
Exactly.
And the good thing is we are really working on it.
Yeah, think about it as well, that there are meetings between the different IT teams that are running SAP. So SAP IT, there is, like we have it, I think, next week again, a call with our folks that are running the SAP landscape in Azure. And so there's a healthy exchange. And it's funny about how often we talk about HANA and what SAP IT does in that case, and what we are doing. These kinds of things. Then we do have a healthy exchange on the CIO, so to speak, CIO level. We don't officially have a CIO anymore, but similar functions, and there's a healthy exchange on that level as well, and on the board level. So it is, and it's not only like these are these great to meet you things. There is a very healthy exchange, and we are just preparing another one right now, and so that's pretty good. We're feeling quite okay about how things go. And so that's the nice thing is, as you mentioned, Olga, it's between these different levels as well, and that we are trying to learn from each other. Especially on the operational basis, like the IT teams and so on. Yeah, absolutely.
We had Hans Reuter also in one of the shows, and he talked about, first of all, obviously what Microsoft Digital or Microsoft IT is doing, and then he also mentioned this collaboration, and I think that's really a very fruitful discussion, because obviously SAP IT they know how to run HANA, they have direct connection to their development, but we, or Microsoft Digital, knows how to run Azure, and they have the best connection to you and the other Azure Compute folks. And bringing these teams together, or that these teams are actively working together, I mean, that helps them, that helps us, but that also helps really our customers. And I think that's really the really beautiful thing. So I always love when we talk about showcases from Microsoft Digital, how we run SAP, when SAP talks about how they run SAP on Azure. And this is really what helps us, but in the end, what really helps customers.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, and we are trying as well with blog sites and so on to keep to push that IP out. And really help customers with this intellectual property that we gained, either blog sites or our documentation site that we have. So that's also a very central part of the engineering that we do out of my team, where we definitely have the IP creation, or also the IP creation and the IP that our digital unit, formerly Microsoft IT, is generating, that we can leverage that in order to get it out as well to customers. So pretty important here, and us running such quite a demanding landscape of SAP in Azure as well. It's certainly helping us to understand. Not only to understand the workload, but to get really indications what's missing and where things go and what's demanded. So there are a lot of advantages there, and as mentioned, so that works out pretty well, and so SAP partnerships looking good, and so we're looking forward, and especially deliverables that we agreed and embrace with. There will be some that are a little bit less obvious, but pretty impactful. Also from a cost effectiveness, cost efficiency point of view. So that's for customers, not only for us, but mostly for customers. Well, which is a funny thing when you think about it. I mean, there are some things that we put on the rails like one thing we are working on some things that we put on the rails in my team. That is actually purely from our side a little bit counterproductive, where we say, look, we want to have more efficient solutions, cluster solutions, high availability cluster solutions, where we are reducing the number of VMs. We know very well that will cause us, or the result could be less revenue for us. But on the other side, it is a clear price or economic efficiency point of view that we need to take into account. So we need to make sure that customers can run the SAP workload as price efficient as possible on Azure. And that's why we, for example, are working on getting back on the Windows side to the original Windows cluster configuration that was introduced by SAP in 1998 and is still used today on-premise, which foresees, for example, a 2-node cluster where the central services and the database are running both on the same cluster now.
Mm-hmm.
So engineering's more or less done already. We are now in the documentation phase, but we are set to allow that, to introduce that as a supported configuration on Azure as well, something that we did not do before. And so on the Linux side, though, we need to work with the respective Linux distros to have them supporting something like that. Windows, it's a little bit easier, obviously, because that is the operating system we own, and that's also a way how SAP can install already with SWPM on premise already. So these are these efforts that we are doing. We also trying to get general purpose hardware, more units of general purpose hardware or VMs like E-Series certified for HANA in order to get more cost efficient choices out for the customers. So that's areas that we are going to invest from purely the infrastructure as a service end as well. The funny thing, though, is a little bit this is also something where where I see a lot of changes with customers happening right now. As customers are moving from on-premise into cloud, the way how you look at your infrastructure is changing. The infrastructure is not depreciated over 3-4 years anymore. It's basically set in stone. There is this change on the customer side where they are like, hey, this thing is more fluid here. There's new things that come out every year that we can use every year to improve our efficiencies, to improve our capabilities. And also, we talked about the services, the SaaS services for operational monitoring. Mm-hmm. These are that came anew 3 years ago as a customer moved into Azure. There was no SaaS service that could give you a backup for HANA. Yeah. Now there is. So customers are starting regularly to look into, hey, what is the cloud giving me more? What do I get more out of the platform that I moved into? Where can I get the efficiencies out? Where can I make my life easier? So that's a very fascinating thing. And for some of the customers, really a new thing, a new arm, mm-hmm. A new trait that they have to develop in a sense. But nevertheless, exciting for the people usually that are involved in these things. Yeah, that's really, when you think about it, a very new thing. And it also has to do then to a degree with the shift of permissions. Like when one of the learnings was here in Microsoft that we did empower at the end our basis team of SAP to deploy infrastructure, something that they had never done before. Obviously, mm-hmm. when we were on the on-premise world, on the bare metal world in the beginning, well, they had no, I mean, they did not touch the service in a sense as they got deployed. I mean, there was a different team. There was a storage team. There was a networking team. Even as we went into private cloud, they were not empowered to deploy their own VMs because obviously the hardware pool available was strict, was very strictly controlled. There was no infinite hardware available, so that the basis team could have created masses of VMs. Not that they should have created masses of VMs, but at least the people that ran the private clouds were very sensitive about hardware availability or resource availability. So we're controlling the VMs, the placement of the VMs themselves. Now, as we moved into public cloud, that kind of bare metal infrastructure capacity limits went basically away, and subsequently we in the organization in what's called our digital unit, what was IT before, took that step to empower the basis team to deploy their own infrastructure. Infrastructure in the sense, this is VMs in Azure, this is storage in Azure. And with that one, cut down the reaction times to certain tasks, to certain requests from the business side tremendously. You talk about a test system to be strapped up for a certain proof of concept of a new SAP S/4HANA functionality that the finance folks or the logistic folks want to see. These kinds of things, with empowering the basis team to deploy their infrastructure in hyperscale cloud, was a tremendous improvements to the times that we saw before. That had a big impact on us, and I know on other customers as well. So clearly there needs to be a cost control as well, and that's possible with Azure as well. That you have on the other side the cost controls. Let's not fool us. At the end, if everywhere where I give some permissions, where I give some freedom, there needs to be some cost controls as well. Otherwise, we end up in a spree of VMs and also then associated costs. But nevertheless, I mean, it's all possible with Azure, and so yeah. Awesome from our side. When we look in our company, our basis team actually feels better than ever. They are empowered. They have less dependencies on like other teams in terms of infrastructure. The infrastructure availability, so to speak, that whole component of, hey, I need to work with procurement to get new service in, to get the new in, or I have to work with other teams to get new VMs created in private cloud. That all fell away. So they have additional responsibilities, and this is like, hey, there are some cost controls. You have to stay within a certain framework here, or certain budget here. But within that budget, they have the freedom to look for better solutions, for more cost-effective and efficient solutions as well. It's not like, oh, we bought the hardware now for 3 years, you can't have another one because it needs to be depreciated. No, if you think you need a larger VM and it fits into the budget, the business case is there, then yeah, get it. But on the other hand, if you also see that you over-deployed something or in the sense of oversized something, well, you can also react and downsize the whole thing. So that's it's exciting to see how these basis teams, SAP basis team, often morph and change, and responsibilities change. But they're really exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting new learning that happens in the cloud, and it's a constant lookout for new functionalities and new features.
Yeah,
I think, I mean, you provided a beautiful outlook already on what's next, and I think there are certainly a lot of very interesting things on the roadmap that we have for our customers. So
no doubt about. I mean, it's. As mentioned, we are steadily improving, we are steadily working, and that's also the nice thing. thing about cloud to a degree. I mean, the hardware is certainly a very important component because we run a software on it, but there are substantial parts of functionality that we can influence with software. Changing software is relatively easy compared to changing hardware.
Yeah.
Not only from a financial point of view, but think about deploying hardware in the mass that we do. I mean, and so, but changing deploying software is relatively easy. Sure, it needs to have a safe concept and really, as we deploy globally here, 60 regions or close to 60 regions. This is a huge effort. There is a huge process behind to make sure that the software changes are safely deployed, that we have the right measurement points and analytics points to see what the impact of the new software functionality is, to reliability, to in a lot of other dimensions and senses. But nevertheless, it is easier to rip out. It is easier than ripping out hardware to get a new capability and replacing it by new hardware to define your capabilities strictly over hardware. And so that's the nice thing about that shift in that cloud brought to us as well. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so I think it's let's see what the next shift will bring us in the cloud. And I mean, now we're at episode 50, so maybe we can, or we will certainly plan you for episode 100, but maybe
with Juergen, Juergen got the label Santa Claus because of the Christmas time, but he's
special, isn't it?
Also, but you are special. You are appearing also in the summertime, So
yeah,
meaning he's 65, so you will be around here more often. For sure.
That's a good point, Gordon. So we'll definitely invite you again for our Christmas episode.
Yeah, let's do that.
I have a summer Christmas episode.
Great. Yeah. No, thank you so much, Juergen. I think that was a really nice closing of our 50th episode. Thanks for contributing. Thanks for all the things that you're doing, obviously, and driving this whole SAP on Azure topic forward. And yeah, we'll see each other again latest in the Christmas episode.
Absolutely. And now remind me on the Santa hat thing that I need to put on. Hair is not a lot left anymore, so can it as well as Santa hat.
That's called optimized feature, optimized.
Okay, guys, thanks a lot. Thank you. Great work from you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.